Welcome to Conversations on the Coast, San Francisco's premier author interview program. And today we are joined by novelist Kate Atkinson, who is here to talk about a new book of hers called One Good Turn. And the publisher is Little Brown and Company, and thanks for stopping by.
It's a pleasure.
You know, your arrival here has been somewhat heralded in the Sunday paper this week. You are already number 9.
I know.
On the best. Nice? Isn't that wonderful?
That's wonderful.
You haven't even been here to scare the people or anything.
I know, but San Francisco has been such a great supporter of Case Sisters, my last book. I mean, it's only just dropped off the charts here. I don't know. I don't think there's anyone left to buy it in San Francisco. It's brilliant.
And then if you get closer to your radios, you'll see that her publisher, Little Brown and Company, took out this fantastic ad to let everybody know that there's a new Kate Atkinson book. The new novel by Kate Atkinson, it says, the author of Case Histories, is an absolute must-read. That's the wonderful Harlan Coben, the author of Fade Away. And what a nice person. That's really terrific. I
pay him at the end of the year.
So really, you're coming here somewhat on a roll, and it's really nice to have authors. Sometimes we have authors here, and it's the first time in San Francisco, and they're nervous and all like that, but that's not the case today. There's a book that we did on this program a couple of years ago called 1,000 Places to Go Before You Die, and it broke these various trips down into reasons why you might want to go to a place. And for example, for religious purposes, there are a number of places like Assisi and things like that. And it also had a section on festivals. And one of the places it advised people to go is either the Edinburgh Fete or the Edinburgh Festival. What's the proper thing for this? Festival?
The Edinburgh Festival.
And it goes on for?
Most of August.
Most of August. Is that why somewhere in the book you have one of the characters saying that apparently the people in Edinburgh don't work? They're too busy lying about?
I think the people he was referring to are the visitors that come, because Edinburgh has a population of just under 500,000.
Okay.
And during the festival, it doubles to just over 1 million. So you really feel it physically because there are just so many people. And we also get, I mean, everybody comes, from circuses to the book festival to... the Lady Boys of Bangkok. I mean, there's everybody and everything. So, but also a huge amount of student theatre. So, a lot of students lie around. That's their job. So, I think that's probably who he's referring to.
He's referring to them. Yeah, at the center, this book takes place several days of a week during the festival, and it centers on a play that with a title that kind of makes you say, that must be in the Edinburgh Festival. The title of the play is Looking for the Equator in Greenland. Yeah, a little different.
I've seen much bad theatre in the course of the festivals over the years.
This would just add to it.
I have many friends in the theatre who have also taken part in much bad theatre over the years during the festival. So,
but there's also, I would guess, a sense of everybody having a good time.
Everybody having a good time. Everybody having their shot as well. Because quite often you play to a tramp and a cat, and there's a lot of these shows are playing to nobody. So it's, on the other hand, with the comedy, and you haven't even mentioned the comedy, it's a huge part of the festival, part of the Fringe is the comedy. And I would say there isn't a comedian in Britain who hasn't played the Edinburgh Festival, and half of them have been, found their fame there. So a lot of people come to get their big break.
Yeah. One Good Turn opens, I guess we could say, with something that happens in the middle of the festival, and it's quite possible that something like this would happen, as I think what is described as a simple act of road rage.
Yes, I find road rage really interesting, actually, because I'm sure that most people who are involved in road rage, if they stepped outside of their car, would probably be perfectly decent people. But not in this case, because the guy who's involved in this road rage is a particularly nasty piece of work. And it sets in train a lot of the action of the book, but also it was a locus for all the characters to meet, because I wanted them there to be at the beginning and then at the end, and in between, I don't know, hardly ever to meet.
Now, this to me is the magnificent thing that you pull off in this book. At some point, as I'm reading it, I realize that, if you'll forgive the expression, your thesis, the way you're going at this, is that everybody who is in that square and sees that accident or active road rage is connected to everybody else.
Yeah, but they just don't know it.
They don't know it at the moment, but the wonder of the book is that you make that happen. One Good Turn is a most unlikely kind of crime book. And it takes us into Edinburgh, and it has an unusual hero. And I want to take a closer look at him when we come back.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at JimFosterCoc and email JimFosterCoc@gmail.com.
One Good Turn is the title of the book. Kate Atkinson, the author, is with us. And Haven Kimmel has some wonderful things to say about the book. For example, she okay, I'm an enormous fan of Kate Atkinson's. One thing I've said about her is that she abides by Henry James's maxim: the first task of the novel is to be interesting. Her plots are rollicking and engaging, flawlessly constructed, filled with hooks and secrets. That she's able to pull that off with characters who are real and sympathetic, who are involved in moving entanglements, is a little miracle. And that is the interesting thing. I mean, there's a lot of plot here, but there's also a lot of wonderful characters.
I think there's more character than plot, really. I like plot, I like structure, but I really like characters, so they tend to kind of get more time from me, I think.
The man somewhat at the center, I guess you would say, or I would say, is Jackson Brodie, who is a character that you had in your previous book, Case History.
That's right.
And he's a somewhat reluctant hero, it seems to me, this time out. He keeps saying or thinking that he'd rather be back in France, swimming laps in his turquoise pool.
He was a pretty reluctant hero last time out too. He's not. Somebody said to me yesterday, he never wins a fight, and I thought, okay, if I write another book, he's going to win a fight. But
he wins the big number.
Yeah, he inherited a lot of money at the end of the last book, which hasn't done him any good at all. And some of the people in this book go at it real well, telling him that. Yeah. The book is really, I only realized when I finished it, it's really about money. It's about money and greed and the kind of the ethics that surround that. And money makes him feel he's been robbed of his manhood in a way. He no longer has a purpose. I think he retired from life too early, thanks to the money. And so he does wander around this book rather haplessly. I mean, having been always on the right side of the law, he was a military policeman, he was a policeman, a detective in Cambridge, and then he was a private detective. Suddenly he finds himself on the wrong side of the law, which I think maybe brings him up short.
He's a felon.
He is a convicted felon.
Charged felon. I mean,
charged and convicted, yeah.
But he gets out of that really well, I think.
Doesn't seem to really leave a stain on his character.
There's another hero in this book, or heroine, if you will, at least in my opinion, one Louise Monroe, just recently made inspector.
Yes, she was a character who came quite late into the book. I just felt the book needed balance, and she suddenly provided it. And she was quite a surprise to me as a character. I would like to return to her because I find her interesting because she's a very flawed person.
Yeah.
And her ethics, like everyone's in the books, are slightly malleable, but at the same time she is a ferocious mother. She's an incredibly protective mother of her really just useless 14-year-old son, and I found that interesting to write that, I think.
The other thing that I found interesting is that her son is far from perfect. And, indeed is...
what 14-year-old is.
Yeah, involved in petty crime and things of that nature. and she's just very, very real. And she's got a lot of guts. She, I would say, stands up to Jackson very well.
They definitely have a spark between them.
Oh yeah. I never quite flames.
No, perhaps.
But there's another book.
There's a thing. As he says to her, we'll always have Paris.
I want to read something from your book and suggest to you that it might be your writer's philosophy somehow. A vaguely familiar woman with orange hair was sitting on the sofa holding a copy of Martin's latest book, The Monkey Puzzle Tree. That detail alone sent Jackson's brain spinning. And here's the part that I think is you. Boxes within boxes, dolls within dolls, worlds within worlds. Everything was connected. Everything in the whole world. And I think that's what you're working on here, the way you tie everybody back to that first incident.
It is absolutely a book about connections, even when they're invisible. And one of the motifs of the book are the set of Russian dolls, the Matryoshka, that Martin has picked up at an earlier time in St. Petersburg, which, again, I was almost unconscious of as I was writing it. It only just kind of became apparent to me near the end that actually I'd been using that in the structure of the book, that, you're constantly revealing something else, and one incident reveals another, and so on until you get to the
all
heart.
of which makes it very difficult, in an interview like this, to start talking about the plot. Because
I'm not
I have
sure
the
what
feeling
the
everything
plot is.
everything I say gives something away about somebody else.
But even then, I couldn't really tell you what the plot is in a way.
You're right. Why was I worrying?
If I don't know, then.
Oh, well, now we have an author who doesn't know what the plot is. But damn, the book is wonderful, and it is intriguing. And it does give you boxes within boxes. Everything is connected everywhere you look. Beyond all that, there are some moments in this book that I found laugh out loud funny. We'll check in on them when we come back.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at JimFosterCoc and email JimFosterCoc@gmail.com.
This is Jim Foster. It is Conversations on the Coast. Kate Atkinson is our guest. One Good Turn is the book. And a very fine gentleman from across the pond, from the Times Literary Supplement, one Joseph Farrell, has this to say. Atkinson endows her cast with a fascinating richness of life. Whatever she does is done to the highest of literary standards. She has produced an engrossing, enjoyable, complex novella. Novella? Is it not long enough?
It's
over 400 pages.
It's pretty long.
Yeah. Complex novella packed with intriguing characters, vividly imagined scenes, and a compelling plot. And you mentioned in one of the earliest segments, one of the elements of that plot, which we should mention again, is that there's the morality is a very big element here. How people conduct themselves with respect to
good behavior and bad behavior, I think.
Yeah, and everybody's doing one or the other.
Yes, there's not much in between.
No. There's a lovely cat. I mean, a cat's all good, but other than
cat's all good.
The cat's fine. Other than that, there's not a lot of these people you'd like to meet on a dark street. There is also, in my judgment, some rather humorous things said here. Jackson goes out one day and has a lot of different adventures, and he's asked by Julia, his girlfriend, "So how was your afternoon?" Jackson considered all the things he could say. "I nearly drowned today. I found a corpse. I sparked a huge futile sea search. Oh, and the police think I'm a paranoid, delusional nutter." And he chose instead to say, "I went to Cremont, which is a part of an island outside of Edinburgh." Yeah. And I thought that was wonderful.
Well, what do you say in those circumstances?
Yeah. Now, there's another thing, another observation that you make in here, which I think we need to look at this and clear it up. It's somewhere in here around the early part of the book, you make the observation that the citizens of Edinburgh were too cheap to pay for 12 cannon shots to go off at noon. And so their daily cannon goes off at 1 p.m. Now, did you make that up?
No, it's... I don't know whether it's fact, but it's a very strongly held rumor. Actually, I think it's a good idea, because do you want to listen to 12 cannon shots every midday?
Personally, no.
No, so I think the 1 o'clock gun does its business just fine.
Yeah. And then there's Gloria's daughter, Emily, at one point has a conversion. Mm-hmm. And she's very excited about this, of course. And so she calls her mom. Okay? I have some news for you, she says. Emily's less than dulcet tones announced over the phone. Good news. Good news? Gloria queried. She wondered if Emily was pregnant again. Was that good news? So she was taken aback when Emily said, I found Jesus. And Gloria said, oh, where was he? That's probably not. I love that line.
It has nothing to do with the book as well.
No, it doesn't. But it's just one of those humorous moments that readers like me don't let get by. One of the other main characters in the book is an author, Martin Canning, a.k.a. Alex Blake. Why did you have him in this book with such prominence? Well, does this give you a chance to talk about authors and their feelings?
Don't really. I don't. Poor Martin, he's a bit of a loser, but I have to say everything that gets said to him in the book has been said to me at one point or another. So
I kind of thought that.
Yeah, it was.
I kind of thought
it was kind of a place to put these things in some way. I think, especially. You're so short, which is the thing that really offends me, because I feel like saying, well, actually, I'm the average height for a British woman of my age, but people frequently say to me, you're so short. So as they say it to Martin, who doesn't understand either, because he's like 5'8" or something, or 5'9". But apart from that, I don't feel we have that much in common, Martin and I. I would like to think we don't.
Well, no, I think you have gripes.
Author gripes. Yeah.
And I would imagine, other than that, there's not a heck of a lot that you hold in common.
I hope not.
The one part in the book where you describe an author's lunch.
The book festival. Yes, that rang true. I did launch this book at the book festival this year, and I did not read that passage.
The book that she launched at that festival, she didn't read that passage, is called One Good Turn. It's a wonderful book. You oughtn't miss it. It's Kate Atkinson back at it again. Just terrific. This has been Conversations on the Coast, and I'm Jim Foster.
Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at JimFosterCoc and email JimFosterCoc@gmail.com.